Hello and welcome to this micro lecture about purchasing integration, which belongs to the Unit 1, Introduction to Silver Worker and Lifelong Learning in PSM. We have two learning goals for this micro lecture. First of all, we will learn how to examine the impact of organizational structures on PSM performance and how to optimize them. And secondly, how to analyze the principles of supply integration and its influence on operational efficiency and innovation. We have two chapters before we conclude with this micro lecture. First of all, I would like to start with the PSM organization and integration. And secondly, we will come to the supply integration. So let's start with the first chapter. First of all, why does it matter how PSM is organized within an organization? And as you can see, we have several functions in a company which belongs to the purchasing and supply management department. And each of those functions have different roles, responsibilities, and skills. First of all, we have the Chief Procurement Officer, who has the responsibility to develop corporate sourcing strategies, is therefore overall management, leadership, and needs communication skills as well. Then there's a corporate buyer who is responsible for strategic commodities. He has typically a long-term planning horizon and orientates itself in the broad business. Then there's a category manager who manages new materials and components, new suppliers, has typically comprehensive technical knowledge as well, and has a medium planning horizon. Then we also have a project buyer who is managing investment goods, maintenance goods, and services, and also needs project management skills and is therefore technical education. And last but not least, we have an operational buyer or a materials planner, who has the name after managing materials, ordering, handling, is therefore troubleshooting, vendor rating, is mostly quite pragmatic and customer driven. So organizational structures overall determine how strategies and decisions can be implemented. So PSM resources and knowledge influence corporate decision making. And changing goals beyond savings or operative efficiency, like innovation and sustainability, require organizational structures that help to fulfill new targets. So let's come to different ways how we can organize purchasing and supply management department. So typically we distinguish between those three models of how we can organize the PSM department. First of all, there's a central model, and we have a decentral model and a matrix model. In the central model, we have one central procurement department for the whole supply chain that concentrates the procurement of all required goods. Then we have the decentral model, where there's one purchasing department allocated to each business unit. And then we have the matrix model, where there's one central procurement unit for coordination and various decentralized procurement units. The objective here is to maximize the advantages of the other two structures and minimize disadvantages. So let's have a look at the advantages and disadvantages of all the three models. So here we can see a table of all the listed advantages and disadvantages of those three models. First of all, for the decentralized model, we typically have a higher speed and responsiveness. We also have an understanding of unique operational requirements. And also we are closer to new product development departments and therefore can support them much better. And there's an ownership of decisions affecting purchases. On the other hand, we lose a little bit of the operational versus strategic focus. We have a lack of leverage and standardization, as well as a lack of specialization and expertise, and there are typically higher cost of supply. On the other hand, for the centralized model, we have the advantages of better coordination and control of policies and procedures. We have a better strategic focus and expertise. because of those centralized department, we have a proximity to major decision makers, higher leverage and lower purchasing costs. But on the other hand, there's also organizational silo understanding from users, a lack of recognition of unique business unit needs, and less two-way knowledge sharing. In the middle, so between of them, we have the advantages that potentially we can combine the advantages of both centralized and decentralized functions. On the other hand, we have some complications with regard to role definition, decision rights, and coordination, because matrix organization can be much more complex in the end. Having a look at the current organizational structure of PSM departments in practice, we see that many organizations still have a centralized procurement department. On the other hand, we also see a trend from central to matrix procurement structure. And there are several factors that influence the organizational structure. One aspect is the firm's overall business strategy. So to be responsive to individual customers in different markets, we rather have a decentralized structure. Another aspect is the competitive advantage. By being more effective than the competition, then we rather have a centralized structure. Also, another aspect is the similarity of purchases, because similar purchases across the organization means we better have a centralized structure. And also, there might be different purchases across the organization. That means we would follow a decentralized structure. Another aspect is also the total purchase dollar expenditure, because we can decrease the purchase expenditure by centralizing the procurement department. Another aspect is the overall philosophy of management. So the degree of centralization in our experience depends much on upper management's opinion. So these factors might change currently the trend from central to matrix procurement structure.